Good afternoon, everyone. I am Gopi Derwale. Today, I am going to deal with this topic: magical realism in Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. These are my personal information. This is the roadmap of my presentation. First is about the author. Second is about the novel, Midnight's Children. Then magical realism in Midnight's Children. And then history and fiction. And then conclusion. First is about the author. Here is the brief introduction of Salman Rushdie, born in Bombay, India, and Indian-born writer whose allegorical novels examine historical and philosophical issues by means of surreal characters, brooding humor, and an effusive and melodramatic prose style. His treatment of sensitive, religious, and political subjects made him a controversial figure. In August 2022, Rushdie was attacked and seriously injured while on stage in New York. He had been scheduled to give a speech about the United States being a refuge for exiled artists. Rushdie faced a long recovery and ultimately lost one eye. Rushdie received many awards, such as the Booker Prize in 1981 for Midnight's Children. Here is the brief information of the novel Midnight's Children. Is a groundbreaking novel written by Salman Rushdie and published in 1991. It stands as a seminal work in contemporary literature and is known for its rich fusion of history, magic, and politics. The narrative revolves around the life of Salim Sinai, who is born at the stroke of midnight on India's Independence Day in 1947. As the story unfolds, Rushdie masterfully weaves together Salim's personal journey with the uh, tumultuous political and social changes in post-independence India, creating a mesmerizing tapestry of magical realism that offers a unique perspective on the country's history and identity. The novel has been celebrated for its intricate narrative structure, allegorical depth, and exploration of the complexities of a nation's birth and identity. What is magical realism? So magical realism is a literary genre. It combines the elements uh, supernatural, magical, and also the fantastical with the everyday world, blurring the lines of reality and history. So magical realism, and marvelous realism are highly disputed terms, not only due to their complicated history, but also because they encompass many variants. Their wide scope means that they often appear to encroach on other genres and terms. The term magic realism was coined by German art critic Franz Ruh in 1925 to describe a tendency in German painting which demonstrated an altered reality. Some writers interview in an ever shifting pattern, sharply attacked realism in representing ordinary events and descriptive detail together with fantastic and dreamlike elements, as well as with the materials derived from myth and fairy tales. Example of magical realism include Gabriel Garcia Marquez' 100 Years of Solitude, in which characters experiences magical realism, and this novel Rushdie's Midnight Children. In which historical elements and in which historical elements connected with this magical realism. How does magical realism differ from other literary genres such as fantasy and science fiction? Any genres of fiction can get at truths. Some science fiction and fantasy do so and are serious fiction. Some scientific fiction and fantasy are escapist, but magical realism is always about exploring the possibilities of imagination, creativity, and imagination and
Just check internet if it is working. Is it disconnected? Was it with the proper ID or 1 GB limit was there or no that one? Okay. Okay.
Okay. How does magic realism differ from other literary genres such as fantasy and science fiction? So, in which science fiction and fantasy are always speculative, they are always positing that some aspects of objective reality were different. Magical realism is not speculative and does not conduct thought experiments. Instead, tells its stories from the perspective of people who live in our world and experience a different reality from the one we call objective. If there is a ghost in a story of magical realism, the ghost is not a fantasy element but a manifestation of the reality of people who believe in and have real experiences of ghosts. Magical realistic fiction depicts the real world of people whose reality is different from ours. It's not a thought experiment, it's not speculation. Magical realism endeavors to show us the world through other eyes. Magical realism in Midnight Children. This is all about how Salman Rushdie used magical realism in this novel Midnight Children. Rushdie adopts the device of magical realism in Midnight Children. Magical realism is a term originally coined by German out critic Franz Roh in 1925 to describe the tendencies in the work of certain German painters in the early 20s. Salman Rushdie has written critically acclaimed magazine realist novels. His Midnight Children, Shame and the Satanic Verses incorporate the technique of magic realism. While reading The Midnight Children, we find that the whole novel is perfect combination of reality and imaginary, between the real and the unreal. There are many places in Midnight Children where Rushdie used the device of magic realism for the framework of the novel. When we go through the novel, we find that Salim Sinai, the protagonist of the novel, he has the gift of having an incredible sense of smell, which allows him to determine others' thoughts and emotions. This gift of Salman is the same. This gift of Salim is the same to that of his grandfather. Atim Aziz, who also had the same large nose and magical gift. In the novel, we see Adam's incredible sense of smell. Magic realism is a mythical movement connected with a style of writing or a performance that incorporates magical or paranormal events into realistic narrative without questioning the questionability of the events. Magic realism is related to but characteristic from surrealism due to its focus on the material object and the actual existence of things in the world, as opposed to the more cerebral, psychological, and subconscious reality that the surrealists explored. Salim's oddly unreliable narrative also calls into question readings of Midnight Children as magic realism. A defining trait of magic realism is that its supernatural elements are admitted, accepted, and integrated into the rationally and materialistic of literary realism. History and fiction in Midnight Children. In Imaginary Homelands, Rushdie writes that history is always ambiguous, facts are hard to establish, and capable of being given many meanings. Reality is built on our prejudices, misconceptions, and ignorance, as well as on our perspectiveness and knowledge. The reading of Salim's unreliable. The protagonist of Salman Rushdie's novel, Salim Sinai, and through him, Rushdie tries to make the connection between historical and personal. These boundaries between historical and personal in the novel is blurred in such a way that historical becomes personal and personal becomes historical, and what is exactly personal and historical remain unclear for the reader. Salim Sinai's life is connected to history in such a way that it cannot be separated. So, Rushdie, in the very beginning of the novel, tells us that Salim Sinai is handcuffed to history, beginning with Salim's birth on the day of India's independence. Rushdie very beautifully connects Salim's personal life with history as if history is happening for him. His rewriting of Indian history is the part of subaltern historiography from the viewpoint of an individual. Salman Rushdie says that history is not only which is documented in historical archives or written in our history books, but it is also which lives in the mind of people who saw it happening. Thus, there are alternative histories also that are based on memories. Here is the another notable elements of magical realism is the pickle. Salim Sinai, the narrator of the novel, he is born with a pickle jar on his head. The pickle jar is a symbol of Salim's alienation and isolation. It also represents the burden of history that he carries as Midnight's child. The talking pickles also play an important role in Salim's development as a storyteller. The pickle tells Salim stories about the history of India and the world, which helps Salim to understand his own place in the world. The power of storytelling. Rushdie uses the pickle stories to explore the power of storytelling to shape our understanding of the world. And then the importance of memory. The pickle stories help Salim to remember his past and to understand his own identity. Chutney is a cold sauce made from fragmented fruit, vinegar, sugar, and spices. It is sold in jars, and Indians often eat it with meat or cheese. In Midnight Children, Salim Sinai learns the secret of pickling the best chutney from Mary. His erstwhile Aya. The secret is that because Mary puts her feelings inside them. The pickling process for the Indian chutney is the mixture of all sorts of fragmented sources. In Salim's mind, the chutney recalls his own feeling and memory of the past history, the ups and downs in his whole life. To conclude, Midnight Children by Salman Rushdie is a masterful example of a magical realism, skillfully weaving together magical elements with the ordinary, thereby creating a narrative that explore complex theme of identity, history, and the intertwining of the personal and the political. The magical abilities of the Midnight Children and surreal elements like the talking pickles served not merely as a fantastical occurrence but as a metaphors for the multifaceted nature of India's post-independence experience. Salman Rushdie's use of magical realism in this novel enhanced its richness and depth, making it a thought-provoking and unique work that continues to captivate readers with its imaginative storyline and algorithmic depth. These are my references.